Yo, what's going on, guys? Apex the Entertainer here. Prepare to be ridiculously entertained. We got a patch update. We got a meta update. We got some things I want to tell you about as far as the strategies that I'm utilizing currently, along with a bit of an overview as far as the meta as a whole, which is riveting if you haven't heard. If you're not in top 100, God, it sucks. So let's start with the patch update. I want to run through some of the most recent balances. Crazy stuff. Very excited to talk about it. So first and foremost, we have major adjustments to dwarves as a whole. We got a nerf to pirates, probably overdue, and then some just basic changes. I'm well aware that content's a little rough out here, okay? I know you guys are fiending. I'm aware. It's right around the corner. This was the season, if there ever was one, for me to focus on some other things for the channel. And so I'm just about to be done with that. So you guys should see another video in the very near future. And then from then on, you'll have very regular content through the end of the season because I finally have a solid foundation for the upcoming season build. But enough of that. Let me talk about these changes with you guys. Pirate ally in front of me triggers its ability in combat. It triggers twice, is back to being capped. Can we get a womp womp in the chat? Because that's rough. That's a big hit for pirates. This is not a minuscule change. This dampens their power considerably. This puts a pretty hard cap as far as how outrageous pirates can get. As you guys were aware, pirates in arena were pretty hefty in mid to lower tier arenas, specifically just demolishing them. Same thing with ladder. Pirates were just demolishing mid-tier ladder because once you get into high tier, you get a lot better at scam integration, and pirates had a pretty hard time with scam anyway. So it wasn't so much of an issue, in my opinion, for top 100 and things like that. But for that mid-tier gameplay, pirates were just crushing, and it was probably not very fun. I actually had somebody comment not too long ago that they just kept getting blasted by booty repeatedly. And so I didn't feel that as much. But clearly it was an issue and probably a necessary change, but it drops them substantially as far as where I feel like they're standing in the meta. You know, the primary idea behind what you would do with pirates is ensure that you were generating as many treasures as humanly possible, ultimately. So now you have to kind of change the approach that you take to pirates, more on variety when it comes to the individual units, right? So I think things like Redhead, she's going to be much more important for the approach with pirates now, because you're going to need that supplemental generation while also finding a way to get stats. So she'll be huge. I think she is more important than she's ever been for pirates. They're still going to be decent. They're just not going to be where they were at. Dwarves, who, oh man. Okay, so first and foremost, Tipsy, with a little bit of a nerf, going from +2/+2 to +2/+1 for his in-fight buffing. Before I talk about dwarves as a whole, we'll just go right down the line, and then I'll give my synopsis. Dwemer units to myself, they give me the same amount of brews, is essentially just a different unit now. So you can't double stack Dwemer. So yeah, short story is, dwarves are gone, dude. Dwarves just suck now, like bottom tier. Of course I'm joking. Are you kidding me? You think I'm an idiot? You think I'm nuts too? You just looked at me and said Apex is really that dumb. Dwarves are insane now. Give a different dwarf in the shop a brew is now transform a non-dwarf unit in the shop into a dwarf of the same tier and give it 3 brews. Absolutely egregious, folks. Insanity. If you don't remember, the only problem I felt the dwarves had in this meta, the only reason I said that they weren't like top tier is because they were hard to force. And I can't stress enough, outside of that, they obliterate the competition. Dwarves still, obviously with the power creep of Barry, have already been insane at their highest tier. But the opportunity now to have a secondary unit outside of Express that will generate dwarves makes them an absolute staple. And they may very well be the best faction in the game right now from that simple change. If you're not familiar, Gorm dwarves have historically been insane for clan wars. And there is a big reason for why Gorm dwarves are so crazy. And it's not what you'd expect. It's not because of Steelbro Drogar or because of Battle Chugger. Those are great units, but it's because you have a dwarf generator early in the game that's incredibly consistent, right? So in the case So circumstantially now, well, we don't have a unit that's quite as consistent in generating it because of course Grandma's going to require brews, common faction unit generators. That is a big deal. Now there is a point that I think is worth noting. If I jump over here to Jingle Jack really quick, when it comes to Grandma's recipe, initially I thought it was even crazier than it is because I thought that you could freeze units in the shop and then hit brews onto those units and transform them into dwarves for the following turn, which of course was silly. You can't do that because when you transform a unit, it unfreezes them. So you still have to be strategic in your approach to this, but the fact that it keeps the dwarf at the same tier is so stupid. I mean, that is absolutely insane. You know, being able to just sit on tier 5s in your shop and freeze as needed, along with the concept of just having any sort of brew generation so that you can hit her with it, is insane. The potential for dwarves now is ridiculous. To give you guys an example, and bear in mind, I want to make something very clear. This is not a great dwarf game. It's fine. It's not anything to write home about. What's crazy about this is in GM Top 100, I went into this game knowing I was going to force dwarves, which you can't do in GM. You cannot force any given faction, in my opinion, and sustain. And it was so stupidly easy to force dwarves and get a decent board, like a generally usable board. This was me, again, going in knowing I was going to force dwarves. Now I was playing Nema, which of course Nema helps you force a faction, but I was able to farm such key units so quickly, and I had what I would consider really bad luck. And so what I expect to get to show you guys with dwarves in the very near future, I just am so thrilled. I am so excited for dwarves to have an additional layer of strategy because they needed it desperately. So just to give you a little taste of what we're talking about here, we got our big ol' Ori, our nerfed Ori. Yeah, he's really taking a hit. I don't know if he'll survive. And again, not amazing, but to think that it was that easy. If you guys could have seen me play that game and the, in my opinion, poor luck that I got along the way to create a board like that is so stupid. I love it. I love this. I think that, you know, buffs in general in the game are so much more fun. To play dwarves is completely different. And it's so great because I had people asking me for dwarf content and I really didn't want to make any because it's like, what is there to show that we didn't already show or discuss in Barry's meta with the countless amount of previous guides or whatever it may be that you could find from other people throughout the whole Barry season. But now it's a whole different game, baby. Dwarves are on a different game. Let me tell you. All right, so that's all I have on my dwarf input. Again, pirates take a pretty big hit. Let's talk about the meta as a whole, where I'm seeing it currently. And again, you can have the expectation that you'll see lots of videos in the near future to back this up, finally. And I mean it this time. These are not empty words. I'm super excited to be able to show you guys some real content. And I'm much more excited, to be honest, about the foundation I've laid for content when the newest season comes. Because, oh baby, you guys are going to be rolling in top tier quality content for the newest season. But I want to make sure I can give you guys some stuff to work off of as you push for whichever rank you want to push for through Jingle Jack's season. So without further ado, let's talk about the meta. Okay, so I've actually generated you know, a nice in-depth PowerPoint presentation as far as what strategy is most effective for this meta. Don't worry, it sounds really deep and really long and really complicated. I promise it's not. So first and foremost, you're gonna want to get Deadly Joke, Sir Torero, obviously gold if you can, and then find a way to revive them, right? And then revive, find T4 neutrals, get yourself to T4, find a way to revive either of those units, and then rinse and repeat. That's ultimately all you need to do, just for the record. But unironically, let me expand a little bit on how I feel about the meta, individual factions, and approach to units, and playstyle as a whole. Okay, so we're just going to go right up the line. I will clarify, you know, some of the things that I feel are different. I'm not going to expand too much like I did last time. but I will focus on the things that I think have changed since the last time I spoke with you guys about the meta. So pirates, now I'm going to put pirates at the bottom. Again, I haven't been thrilled with pirates anyway without keywords. Again, I know that they feel like they've been demolishing. I'm well aware of how strong people think pirates are because they're easy to force and they're easy to scale. However, scaling is not going to save you in top 100. It's just not. You have got to have more strategy than that, and it was fairly difficult to get much more strategy with them outside of synergistic use of other factions, which I'll expand on a little bit. So with the hit that Boarding Party has taken, I think they're going to be in a tough spot. Again, to clarify, I think the approach has got to change. I think you'll want to focus more on how we generate treasures in other ways. So again, Redhead is going to be absolutely insane. I think she's going to be a really, really important card to utilize with pirates to keep them afloat. Get it? During this meta. Outside of that, I can't really expand much on that. You know, it's still the same approach otherwise, but with the Boarding Party hit, I just think Redhead has got to be a focus more so than she ever was, which also means that I think the tier 3 strat to try to force pirates is going to be less of an optimal strategy, which again, I know a lot of people weren't doing that anyway, right? Generally speaking, the fastest you can get to the late game is the best strategy for late game, right? But again, I think hovering around tier 3 is just not something that's going to be realistic like it was previously with pirates, because it was pretty easy to make that work before. Okay, elves. Hesitantly, I put elves and orcs in the same spot just above pirates. It's tough though. I think that elves now, funny enough, are in a similar spot to what I felt about dwarves before. Elves got a pretty substantial buff. Like substantial. Arcana got a buff, which Arcana was already their bread and butter. So elves can be so good. I have had such ridiculous elf games, but when they're not good, they're just really not good. I just think that they still have some issues in consistency. But again, as far as raw mechanics go, they're pretty freaking insane if you get the high rolls. So high roll elves is just crazy. But if you don't high roll them, they just don't feel that strong. Mechanic wise, as far as raw mechanics go, I didn't really deep dive on them last time. I will certainly be making a video in the near future here. But the short story is you want to get to high tier as quickly as humanly possible. Again, very similar to how I felt about dwarves previously. Dwarves are still like that, right? But it's less necessary than it was previously. With elves, you have got to do that. You've got to streamline straight up to T5 so that you can focus on units like Alindra and Aloria and Arcana. And again, I won't deep dive on the exact strategy because you guys will have more to come, but that's my placement for elves currently. Okay, so orcs being the next one up, as far as third up from the bottom in current meta. Orcs are crazy. They are really, really great. They are a really great synergistic faction because of Double Trouble. Multi-strike across all sorts of units is insane. And still to this point, Twin Fang combines very well with other things that summon lots of other units. So you can play him with ninjas, you can play him with gnomes, and he can really help carry the board in the mid or late game. So orcs still very much have a place, but if you're going to dedicate yourself specifically to orcs, they're still quite easy to counter if you go against the wrong thing. If you go against the wrong ninja team, you're just going to feel like all of your work was for nothing because it's so easy to get crushed when you don't have keyword integration, which is another point I want to make about orcs and kind of a theme here, which is that things that don't have solid keyword generation are going to continue to be a problem if you want to go high level GM. Now remember, mid tier, I think this is not the same tier list. I want to be very clear about that. I think when it comes to mid tier play, it's generally going to be what does the best job of early game and being able to convert and generate other units of the same faction. So that means that things like gnomes, pirates, ninjas, and dwarves now are going to demolish mid-tier. Now, some of those factions are going to be really strong in the latest game anyway. But my point being, orcs probably feel quite a bit better in mid-tier. They don't feel great in high-tier. Okay, this one is tough for me. I have a really hard time not putting Nords higher up. But Nords have taken a drop from what I initially said to you guys. Because Nords also require some sort of a high roll. and they have a very hard time, in my opinion, catching wind if you don't hyperfixate on tearing up as fast as you can. You have got to get the late game units, and you have got to make sure you score things like Tribe Forum or Winds of Winter or whatever it may be to make them really feasible. Now they do have keyword generation, right, which is a big deal, which is why they're still higher up, because if you can get Winds of Winter, if you can get Tribe Forum and you can get Winds of Winter and you can make sure Winds of Winter has multi-strike and you can somehow get him Overwhelm or Barrier or whatever it may be, he's absolutely insane. When you high roll Nords, it feels so unbeatable and so much fun. I have been playing a ton of Nords. I play a ridiculous amount of Nords, but I have to be realistic and say that I don't think they're better than the upcoming factions that we'll discuss. Okay, so we move into Gnomes here, and I'm actually going to put a three-way tie for first place, because I think all three of the following factions are so stupidly strong after some of the changes that I just cannot see a way to say that any is better than the other, because it's based entirely on how well you fall into their combo starters and how well you understand how to scale and push into late game with that given faction. So obviously we had the addition of Arsenal Alchemists, which is crazy. That's the core of Gnomes being front runners in the meta for any given dealer. If you have Arsenal Alchemists, you really can't be bad at Gnomes. It's that simple. So of course, the same thing always goes with Gnomes, and it continues to be something, although I will say with Jingle Jack less so than previous dealers. You're pretty reliant on Arsenal Alchemists, right? So if you get a really unlucky game and you just can't seem to get your hand on any Arsenal Alchemists, then you're gonna have a bad time. That's the only reason I wouldn't say that they are definitively in first place, because similar to Nords, but less so, because it's reliant on a tier 2 unit, not tier 5 units. When they pop off, they are so stupid strong. They have incredible economy built into their kit. They have super solid keyword generation, and they have insane scaling. You just can't go wrong. They're the whole trifecta. They are incredible unless you can't get Alchemists. And back to Dwarves, again, not much more to say here. Dwarves, I think, are going to be incredibly, incredibly strong. I would not have put them in this place had I not seen the change with Grandma's Recipe, but I'm super excited to see what happens with the meta. I think we're going to see these doing a lot in Arena. The highest tier boards of Dwarves are going to be absolutely insane, and the consistency that they get with Grandma's Recipe is going to be also insane. And last but not least, I'm sure you guys aren't surprised to hear, I still think ninjas are the best. I know I am not in the majority when I say this. I hear people talking about different reasons that they think ninjas aren't the best, and I will be making a video tackling specifically why I think they are still. I will say a couple of key things. Number one, there are some things that I avoid with ninjas. Essentially, I avoid anything that is going to require me to lose fights to continuously get scaling. What I mean by that is if you try to utilize something like Oni-chan or Bladefall Jutsu for scaling, the problem is they're going to scale your health along the way. So that can be useful, and sometimes you're going to have to be reliant on those units, but then you get stuck in a place where you can't continuously get your summons. So I very rarely use these units for scaling. Similar to Gnomes, I think ninjas are heavily reliant on finding Shinobros. If you can't, for the life of you, find Shinobros, then you'll have to transition to an Oni-chan Bladefall Jutsu scaling tactic. But more importantly, what I don't think I fully deep dove on, and the reason that I say ninjas are incredible, especially as a synergistic faction, is just how crazy Tekko and Undercover Assailant can be. I did not fully understand what kind of utilization you can have with these units. It is absolutely insane, the things that you can do. Re-triggering play abilities, putting things back in your hand, giving things stealth, all three extremely useful tactics with Undercover Assailant. And with Tekko, being able to summon non-ninja units is insane. And you can also re-trigger this with the T5 neutral that re-triggers kickstarts. So you could potentially have 6 units in hand that are not ninjas, and you can summon them. So a good example of where that might be absolutely ridiculous is anything scam related for neutrals, anything dwarf related, because you can continuously buff and keep cheers in hand and then summon those units so you don't have to worry about not getting use of their scaling. and gnomes, because gnomes have summon effects that are really important with T4 units like Chaos, where they continue to get the summon effect and give them those modules after they're summoned by Tekko. It is crazy what ninjas can do for every other faction in the game. So whether you believe that ninjas are a phenomenal faction on their own or not, which of course I do, you cannot deny how ridiculous they are at integrating key tactics and tech that are game breaking. So that's my input. Again, running through the numbers here, tied for first place is going to be gnomes, ninjas, and dwarves. We'll give second place to orcs and nords simply because not only are they both great factions on their own, but they have extremely solid synergy units that matter a lot. And then in third place, we'll give it to elves. And fourth place, womp womp, goodbye pirates. I know I've got a lot of pirate riders here. Feel free to prove me wrong. I'm very curious to see, but I think that hit with boarding party was just enough to tip the scales and send them down the line. It's very debatable, by the way, if elves are better than pirates. I think you could reasonably say that they're about the same. So I don't want to sit here and go, oh, elves are way better than pirates. I just think both of those factions don't support the kind of insane opportunity that the other factions have in high rolling. So that's my sweet and simple story for where the meta stands currently. Get excited for some premium top tier content around the corner. I have Clan Wars content that I'm going to be showing you guys. I have meta content that I'm going to be showing you guys. And of course, I've got just some bonkers, wonky, weird gameplay around the corner. I hope to see you there. I appreciate you watching. I love you, as always. Thanks for being here.